Hi, it's Martin from Moshville Times, and I'm here with Craig Goldy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great, great. Uh, can I say it's an honour to be speaking with you today? The first ever gig I ever went to was Dio in Warlock on the Dream Evil tour, which you played guitar on. And I was just a 15-year-old kid at the time, and it was just an amazing experience for me.
Oh, well,
Um,
thank you, Martin. That means a lot to me. I appreciate you telling me that. Thank you.
Yeah. And actually, after the show, it inspired me to take up a musical instrument. Um, I
Oh, really?
never, it
Wow.
did, yeah, yeah, and um, I never really did it professionally, but I play in a Dio tribute band now, and so I just
Wow,
wanted to let
great.
you know that I'm a huge fan.
You'll have to let me know what ones you'd like me to see. Do you have some YouTube videos out that I can see?
Yeah, yeah, I could
Yeah,
send
you'll
you
have to
some.
let me know. I'll check them out. That's great.
That's cool. Yeah. So on the tribute band's Facebook page, I mentioned that I was going to be doing this interview with you. So I asked some fans if they wanted me to ask any questions. So I'll intersperse the interview with some of their questions, if that's
Well,
okay.
that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Good thinking.
yeah.
Nice one, Martin.
um, of course, you're promoting your new album. You just finished and released the album by Resurrection Kings. Can you tell me how did that project first come together?
Yeah, I got an email from Serafino, the president of Frontiers, asking me if I'd be interested in doing a recording project with other guys from who made names for themselves in the 80s,
Mm.
steering the music more towards a White Snake, Deep Purple, Rainbow type of vibe. And I was, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to do it. They didn't really have a full lineup at the time, and they didn't have all of the songs set aside yet. So they asked me if I wanted to submit some of my own original material, and said, yeah. So the first thing I thought of was the song "Living Out Loud" that Chaz West and I had wrote and recorded together. Him and I were going to put a band together with Sean about a year or so before that. And things kind of happen, life happens, and things get in the way, and things get put on hold. We all make our priority lists, but life sometimes doesn't read those lists.
Yeah.
But so they liked the song, and they said, if you'd like to, feel free to submit more. And then as we started writing together with Alessandro Del Vecchio, the producer, he's a great singer, as a matter of fact, too. He would sing on some of these demos that we would work on together. And I'd really would like to do an album with him as lead singer. But
Mhm.
anyways, that was a great collaborative effort as well. And then once they honed in on what singer they wanted, he also played bass. So when he fell through, uh, I asked Chaz because that made perfect sense because Frontiers actually liked the song Living Out Loud so much
Mhm.
to the point that the band was going to be called Living Out Loud and the album was going to be called Living Out Loud.
Yeah.
And so when he was available and Sean was available, it made perfect sense and it was great. And then me and Vinny remained friends from the Dio days, and him and I were doing a lot of work together recently. And so he and I were in a recording session at the time when the drummer they had in mind fell through, and Vinny said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." And so, to the naked eye, this project was falling apart at the seams, but in reality, it was getting more powerful and stronger than it ever would have been in the first place.
Will you be touring the new album? Is there a chance you'll be over here in Europe?
I certainly hope so because we're right now, all of us were so impressed with the way the album came out that currently in negotiations with managers and agents to put together a tour in support of the album. And we also would all like to do another album together.
All right, that'd be great. Yeah. Do you have a favourite track from the album, and why would that be?
Well, I'm not because I wrote it, but just because
Mhm.
I'm so glad that that song finally had a found a home. But it does kind of set the tone for the album and why. It was a song called "Living Out Loud."
Yeah, yeah, it's a good track. It's a good track. I think it was the first one I heard from the album.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love the artwork on the new album. Were you involved with choosing that?
A little bit. They sent us a an idea for an album cover that none of us really liked,
Hmm.
and so they said, well, what do you guys have in mind? And
Okay.
so I can draw like a photograph, and I can paint. I'm not
All right.
near the painter that Stan
Hmm.
is, the guy who did the album cover, but I can draw like a photograph. So I had a sketch that I did as a teenager of a wizard standing on top of a hill using the power of the storm to resurrect the dead from the graves below. And I said, this is because he also said, well, why don't you go on my website and take a look at some of the artwork there and see if anything transpires. And I went to his website and I was just absolutely and just floored by how great he really is. And so I said, anything on there is great. I go, but this drawing is really juvenile, but please forgive me, but this is just the idea I have in mind for the word resurrection. And so, kind of a dark twist on it. And so he came up with that artwork, and it was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's good. It's got a very sort of 80s vibe about it. It's quite
yeah, I think he did a great job.
The album it's released in the Frontiers label. It's a label that seems to release a lot of incredibly high quality melodic rock and metal releases. We cover quite a lot at Moshville, and they consistently get good reviews. How do you find being on the label?
Well, actually, they fortunately for me, they contacted me. I had done some work with David Glenn Isley on one of his solo albums way back on Frontiers, and we had discussions from time to time about things, but this was the first time that it was just a real let's go for it. And so when they contacted me for this project, it was perfect timing. I was ready. So, and at the time, I also wanted to try to be able to utilize some of my favorite elements all in one, because and they gave me the freedom to do that on this album. Because Whitesnake '87, I love that album. That's like the perfect album. Even though Deep Purple is my favorite band and Ronnie James Dio is my favorite singer, that album has got something for everybody. It's cohesive, which is hard to do, and have something for everybody. It's a perfect mixture and merge between the music industry and the artist, that they can coexist without canceling out one another and do it successfully. But there's real kind of sexy, nasty, dirty guitar riffs and stuff that Sykes did on that album that don't appear in Deep Purple albums. And Ritchie Blackmore has this real eclectic avant-garde staccato style that none of that kind of stuff appears on a Whitesnake album. There's elements of Journey and Foreigner that I love to their songwriting styles, but they're not heavy enough for me to want to really think that to them as one of my favorite bands to listen to, but they are one of my favorite bands. So I got a chance to actually mix all that together, because I love dark, sexy, sad, and powerful, and have a little bit of a sense of humor too, because Ritchie would play with a sense of humor live all the time. Deep Purple did that all the time. So, but I knew that I had to make sure that to be fully aware that a new mixture of already existing entities does not constitute uniqueness. So I wanted to make sure that my contributions guitar-wise were sincere. They weren't just me trying to force the issue. It was a sincere effort, a sincere mixture of things that I loved and things that I was influenced by, and hopes to make the song stronger or become the song it was meant to be. And as we recorded, me and Alessandro would correspond through the emails that I'd send him MP3s and go, what do you think? And he was just like, man, I'm getting more excited as we go. Because little by little, I would rewrite some of the songs that he wrote with others and ask permission, and he'd say, go for it, and then he'd like it. And so we nicknamed it Goldyizing. So we Goldyized some of his songs based on some of the demos that he sent me. And so it was a real collaborative effort, and I'm just very fortunate to have that kind of a positive reinforcement, from beginning to end.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised when the Resurrection Kings album was announced, as you had other projects going, such as Craig Goldy's 13th Floor, and where you recorded a couple of very Dio-inspired songs, which I really enjoyed. And you also had a band called Endangered Species, who you said you were writing a forthcoming album. Are these projects you're still working on, or are they on hold at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. 13th Floor became Endangered Species because when I did an interview, they asked me what am I thinking about calling the band, and foolishly I answered. And then someone trademarked the name out from under me. So 13th Floor was gone, and Endangered Species was gone. So we have a different name now, but it's the same lineup, same singer from those two tribute songs that I did for Ronnie. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, those songs were real special to me. And it was his voice. It was the guy who sang on those two songs that really got me back to be inspired to do original material since we lost Ronnie. Because I just lost so much when that happened, and I just went into a real dark place, and it took a lot to bring me back. And he was played a big part of that. But we're also gonna do a Dio Disciples original material song album. Me and Dave Isley have another album to do this year, that kind of like a Jafria-esque type of album. And so there's a lot of things going on, and I'm very grateful that, but each of these projects are at least something that I can say that I believe in them. Because a lot of us tend to be seen like we don't really care. We just do a bunch of projects just because we want to, make as much money as we can, like a cash grab. But it's not that at all. It's just a lot of us who made names for ourselves in the 80s, we were paid as sidemen. We didn't get a portion of, the big piece of the pie. And so now that the global marketplace has smiled upon the 80s based bands again, there's work for us now. But sometimes we still have to do like 10 different projects just to equal the amount that we used to get paid as a sideman. So luckily we get a chance to have some really good projects in the works, but hopefully it won't send the wrong message, like we just don't care, we'll do anything that comes along. It's not really that at all. Especially for me anyways, I will only tackle something that I really believe in, because I know that it's going to take time.
I'm glad you're back and recording again. I really enjoy your stuff, and
thank you, man.
Thank
you, appreciate that.
Yeah. There's a question from a fan called Linda Brown, and she asks, will Dio Disciples be touring again, and if so, will they come to Scotland?
I certainly hope so, because we do, Ronnie loved the UK. He loved the people there. I mean, they're noble people, and he lived in England for a while when he first joined Rainbow, and a lot of those mannerisms, from that side of the world, he took on as his own, and that played a big part in the type of person he became. And so I love Scotland. I love the UK and England and all that. So we hope to. Dio Disciples are going to be doing some more touring, and like I said, we are going to be doing an original album as well. And so there is a lot more plans for Dio Disciples. But I do want to make sure that people realize that, Ronnie was family. That band Dio was run like a family. It wasn't a band, it was a family. And so when a family member dies, those left behind often try to do something to keep their family member's memory alive. So Dio Disciples was really just that, to try to keep Ronnie's memory alive. I mean, if we did nothing, the man was so loved that he would always be remembered.
Yeah.
But people think that we were kind of trying to cash in on his passing. And quite honestly, when we get back from tours, we're out of pocket. It's a labor of love. It's just like a memorial service that seems like a rock concert. And whenever we play, because we're there with the same hearts and minds as the people that show up, it's just because we love and miss Ronnie as much as the other people do around the world, that when they show up at one point in time during the concert, we all kind of connect. And so you see people singing to the sky like they can see him in heaven. They're singing and tears are falling down their cheeks. And it's really quite an amazing experience. It's really out of love and respect that we do this. So thank you for asking.
I have to say, when I first saw Dio Disciples, it was quite an emotional experience for me, as I'm a huge Dio fan. Did you guys in the band feel like that too, and what kind of reactions did you get from the audience?
Well, we did definitely get mixed responses. In fact, some of who I thought would be the most happy to be a part of it, some of Ronnie's closest fans. Ronnie would make friends with a lot of the people in the Dio fan clubs from around the world, and a lot of people, a lot of Dio fans in the UK especially, would time their vacation around a Dio tour so they could follow us. And sometimes Ronnie was so close with his fans that he let them ride on the tour bus with the band. And those people I thought would be especially, ready to go. But they were so hurt by Ronnie's passing that they couldn't be a part of it for a while either. It is a very emotional thing, because he was such a kind man. I mean, he wasn't a rock star. He was an amazing musician, amazing man. He had a warm heart. He was extremely intelligent, very funny. Went out of his way for people. Whenever you met him, he made you feel like an equal. You were the only one in the room at the time that mattered. And when you walked away from an encounter with Ronnie James Dio, that was something you treasured for the rest of your life. And his music played such a huge part of all of our lives. Some of us, he got through really difficult times in our lives. That man was like a friend and a champion to the world, and the world was his family. A fan is not a fan to Ronnie. A fan is a friend and a family member, and that's the way he treated him. And so it's been my challenge too, personally, to make sure that that way doesn't die with him. To be that way,
Mm-hmm.
to show that love and respect and kindness that he showed to his fans that were actually in reality just friends. Because fans, when you think about it, are just friends you haven't met yet.
It's a good way to look at it. My first gig, as I said, was the Dream Evil tour, and for me it'd be great to relive those memories and see a DVD of that tour. Will there ever be a DVD from that tour? Was it ever professionally filmed?
Are you talking about the Sacred Heart era or the Dream Evil era?
The Dream Evil era. Yeah.
Well, I know there's one from MTV. They filmed it for a thing called Headbangers Ball.
Mm-hmm.
That shows almost the entire concert, but I don't know if they're going to put it out as a DVD. I hope they do, because a lot of people have been responding the same way you did, wondering if there would ever be one, and then making comments on the bits and pieces that do show up on YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen some grainy footage of YouTube, but it'd been really nice to see a nice quality version of that.
Yeah, it was recorded professionally because they aired it on MTV, so somebody has it somewhere.
There's a question from Tim Jarvis, and he says, just Denzel the Dragon or Robot Spider. I presume he means which one did you prefer?
Wait, say that again?
He asked, which do you prefer, Denzel the Dragon or Robot Spider?
That's a good question. Man, in those days that was something special, where you could actually bring an experience to the fans. Trying to choose between the Sacred Heart stage set with the dragon, it actually was a fire-breathing dragon. We were required by law to let the fire marshal and people in charge like that in the UK and America in at soundcheck to tell us whether or not they would allow us to use the fire. So sometimes when we filmed, we actually had to overdub the fire, but it really was a true fire-breathing dragon. And then the spider, that was great because, that was part of my solo, and we, Ronnie and I kind of created a portion of that set together. And I designed some T-shirts and stuff. And in fact, the alien that eventually showed up on that stage was one of my designs. And, we worked closely together on that. But it's kind of, to choose between one or the other is almost like asking someone to say, what if you had to choose between one, which would you choose? To inhale or to exhale?
Yeah, they were both good. The 80s were known for very extravagant, over-the-top stage shows, which you don't see so much anymore. Is that something you miss?
Yes and no. I mean, I do understand why. Some people call it because it's more intimate. Some people know because the budgets are smaller. But as things begin to progress, I kind of hope that we can introduce that again, whether it's just a small portion or a large portion. I think people miss that. I think people miss that experience, the explosions and the lasers and the lights, and because Ronnie was a real generous man, and I say that because he could have kept the money he made to himself, but he reinvested it into a stage that gave back to the fans, because he wasn't, that was money that came from the profit margin that he turned around and gave back to the fans that did not go into his bank account.
Yeah, I loved the stage shows back then. You just don't see them so much anymore. But,
yeah, I think a lot of it just has to do with what budget you're given and who you really are as a person. Do you really want to share your profit margin and give, or do you want to keep it all?
There's a question from Mark Bottomley, and he asks, what's your favourite memory of working with Dio?
Well, actually, it stems back from the Rough Cut days, and it really cuts to the bottom line of what kind of a man Ronnie James Dio really was, and still is to me, which sounds strange, but I think you understand what I mean by that. When I was in Rough Cut, like I said, we became friends. We had a great working relationship, and I was living in the apartment of one of the guys in the band, and I bought a can of tuna, and I made a tuna fish sandwich.
Yeah.
And he came home and saw that that can of tuna was gone and swore up and down that it was his can of tuna. And I was like, okay, well, I'll buy you another can of tuna. How much can a can of tuna, back in 1982 cost? 83, So, but that fit was heard around the world. He just threw a fit and it was heard around the world. I didn't say a word. I mean, what's the big deal? But the next day I'm looking out the window and I think I'm seeing things. Is that Ronnie's car driving up? Sure enough, that was Ronnie's car, and him and Wendy came out, both arms full with a bag of groceries each. So 4 bags of groceries, walking up the steps, and I'm in shock. I should have just opened the door for him, but I'm in shock. So they kicked the door because they didn't even have a free hand to knock with. I open the door, they storm in, they slam the groceries down on the table, and they say, "These are for Craig, leave him alone." And they stormed out just as fast as they stormed in and went back to the recordings of Holy Diver over a can of tuna for me.
Um, I've got another fan question. Ian Purdy, he asks, what was your favourite Dio song?
That's another one. What do you prefer, inhaling or exhaling? It's really hard to say because it really is. It's every song he wrote was a piece of the puzzle of his entire universe that he created. I mean, that man created a universe within a universe, and each song plays a special role. So, but there are favorites that I like to play out live because just the way it hits the audience and the way it hits me is like "Don't Talk to Strangers," "Last in Line," songs like that were the true beginnings of when Ronnie said, "Okay, it's time for me to call the shots." Those were his first 2 efforts that were just so strong and so powerful and made such a statement that now people suddenly realize just how much of Black Sabbath and Rainbow was created by Ronnie and not just the lyrics and melody lines.
Yeah, "Don't Talk to Strangers" is one of my favourites as well. It's a great track. Mark Bottomley is another question. He asks, what track with any band do you consider to be your best work so far?
Oh, my best work. Well, actually, you mentioned them, but I don't think not too many people have heard them. But I did 2 songs as my own personal tribute to Ronnie a couple of years back. One of them is called "Hole in My Heart."
Yeah.
They're available on iTunes. I had to change it from Craig Goldy's 13th Floor to Craig Goldy's Personal Tribute or something like that. But that song, the lyrics and melody lines, when I first spoke at Ronnie's first public memorial, I told people that I learned so much by working side by side with him that I would, when in fact I did do anything original, I would try to utilize everything that I had learned from him in such a way that I could hope only could make him proud. So when Wendy Dio heard these 2 songs, she was in tears and she looked at me and said, "Wow, Ronnie would be so proud of you." And then the second thing she said was, "Who's that singing?" But it's "Hole in My Heart," really.
It's a great song. When I first heard that, I thought, oh, wow, it's almost like an unreleased Dio song. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, do you have those still? Otherwise, if you want to, I can give you my email and you can email me and I can send you the MP3s of those 2 songs.
I bought them and downloaded them as soon as they appeared.
Oh,
so.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, because they are available for download, and for every purchased download, a donation is made to either Ronnie's Cancer Research Fund or to the charity of the downloader's choice. Don't want to sound like a commercial, but I'm not trying to make money off it. It was just something I had to do.
No, they're very good tracks any Dio fan will love those. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Martin. Appreciate that.
I heard that there was some Magica material, unreleased material, kicking around that you were thinking of releasing at some point. Is there any news on that?
You were reading my mind because of the prior question. Yeah. But I tend to give such long answers. I was hoping to try to kind of wait and see if that came up. I apologize for my long answers, but Ronnie, it's just when we talk about these things, there's so much to my experiences with Ronnie that it's hard to give short answers. Yeah. So please forgive me. But yes, it's something that I'm actually the most proud and the most sad of, because there was a time when the doctor gave Ronnie a clean bill of health. Yeah. And he said, "You can do anything you want to do." And Wendy turned to Ronnie and said, "What do you want to do?" And he turned to Wendy and said, "Write with Craig." And so we started writing, and there is one song that is the very last song he ever wrote and recorded before he passed. And Wendy and I are talking about at one point we will release that when it's the right time for the right reason. So yes, there is a song that was earmarked for Magica, and when they do hear it, when you guys hear it, wow, guard your hearts because it's gonna hurt. Because the lyrics that he wrote, it's gonna hurt.
I'll look forward to hearing that one. As far as I'm aware, Ronnie was writing a biography before he passed on. Do you know what happened to that, and will there be any plans to release it?
I'm sorry, say that again. It cut off a little bit.
Sorry. As far as I'm aware, Ronnie was writing a biography before he passed
Oh, right.
on.
Yes, in fact, yeah, Ronnie gave Wendy the approval to finish it herself because of the portions that were left. She played such a large role in that he gave her permission to finish it. So that I'm not sure how far into that it's gone, but I do know that it's still in the works and still on the to-do list for the Dio family.
I wondered if you could tell me a bit about your gear that you use on stage and for recording. You used to use a BC Rich guitars and Marshalls, but you've moved over to Engel and ESP guitars.
Yeah, I've always been kind of in search of a great tone. When I first joined Dio, anyone who's heard the album Intermission, the song Time to Burn has this really eclectic gear that I found when in combination with one another gave this special sound. But Ronnie really wanted me to use Marshalls, and so I really couldn't find... Uh-oh, somebody's calling, but I'll have to just wait and call them back so we can finish this. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So when Engels came around, they were introduced by one of our mutual friends, and it was just the best sounding amp I've ever heard. Because I always wanted to have a sound that was kind of mixed between Eddie Van Halen off of Fair Warning and Ritchie Blackmore's tone on Burn. Because you can really hear the string attack, and it was real percussive, but at the same time it was aggressive. And so the Engel Powerball and the M2 from ESP, it was the alder wood and the Seymour Duncan 59s in both positions and the Gauge 10 strings. That was the winning combination.
It's quite well documented that when you started you were a huge Blackmore fan and he was a big influence in your playing. When I listen to you play though, I don't hear a Blackmore clone. You definitely have your own style. Was there any other guitarists that influenced your playing?
Oh, definitely. Thank you for saying that though, by the way, because I did try not to clone him. I mean, when we go and play in this, me and Vinny have a band that we go because we love those kind of songs we call Black Knights Rising. So I get to do my Blackmore impression because I love to play as close to like he played as possible. Because trying to do a Ritchie Blackmore solo note for note is like trying to quote Shakespeare. But I did try to put my own twist on it, and I am extremely influenced by that kind of guitar playing because that played such a huge part in my life. But I am, definitely trying to do my own style. But Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, Al Di Meola, John Sykes, Neil Schon, just off the top, George Lynch really scared me during the times we were doing the Worst Stars video. He was the reason why I learned how to do what's called vowel sounds on the guitar. When you watch that video, when it shows the entire documentary, there's a portion when he's playing that I turned around, I could have sworn he was using a wah-wah pedal. And I looked down to the floor expecting fully to see a wah-wah pedal, and there was none. It was just the way he was playing. It was just blew my mind. I just figured I've got to learn how to figure out how to do a wah type of sound without having a wah-wah pedal. Man, Yngwie Malmsteen, as much as people say he overplays, I mean, he was really well balanced that day.
Yeah.
And Neil Schon, outstanding. I was really overshadowed, but I was still in learning mode, and but yeah, it was kind of a mixture of all those guys.
They're all great guitarists, yeah. Just finally, do you have a message out there for your fans?
Yes, thank you for hanging in there. When I lost Ronnie, I lost a lot, and so I drank too much and ate too much, and all I did was teach my sorrows how to swim, and end up looking like Kirstie Alley and Meatloaf's love child. But But I've lost 30 pounds, and I'm still got a long way to go. I'm losing weight, but I'm playing better than ever. I'm writing better than ever. I'm still able to now utilize some of my best recording techniques that I've learned along the way by working side by side with Ronnie and some of the guys that work with John Lennon and Zeppelin and all this stuff. So the best is yet to come. Thank you for being so kind in your comments and not making me feel like shit for looking like shit. But the best is yet to come.
No, I can't really talk. I'm putting on a bit of weight myself, so I can't criticise. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we all get older and things happen, but I mean, you know, I am aware.
Yeah. I'm really glad.
It's not their fault for noticing.
Yeah. I'm really glad you're back on track and you're recording again, and look forward to hearing your new material. So, thanks very much for the interview, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and stay in touch through my email that I gave you, and because Ronnie used to do that, he'd give interviews, and sometimes there'd just be like something about somebody that he kind of stay in contact. That's how him and Eddie Trunk became friends.
Yeah. Okay.
And I learned, you know, that interviews don't always have to be interviews; they can be conversations, and sometimes you actually make friends out of those conversations. So, thank you, Martin.
Well, thanks very much. I'll let you go.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.